Hi all. Today we will see education as an act of teaching. This is a bit debatable statement whether education is only teaching. So first of all, let us see what is teaching. So what are our perceptions regarding teaching? So when we think about teaching, the figure of a teacher who is standing in front of our class talking continuously, that's the picture, common picture of a traditional teacher. But the modern perception, the perceptions on teacher of modern times has changed or changing tremendously, as well as at uh, greater pace. So the newer demands, newer needs of the learners, new changes in the context, the calamities, all these prompted a thorough change, a paradigm shift in teaching. The focus of teaching, the purpose of teaching, everything is in change. So, whatever it is, there are some basic questions regarding teaching. The three basic, most important questions: what to teach, why to teach, and whom to teach. So, these are the three basic questions. What to teach, what we are going to teach, or are we really going to teach something to somebody? So, what is the material? Whether it is a content, whether it is some procedure, whether some activity, performance, what actually we meant to teach. So, that's applicable for any kind of teaching of any level. Then, why to teach? What are the purposes? Why this particular content, particular topic, or particular activity, or particular practicum, performance? Why this is significant for a particular, a specific level of learners? And whom to teach? Regarding the audience, that's very specific question, narrow question than that of what to teach and why to teach. So the learner belong to which level, whether a preschool learner, a elementary stage learner, or a learner at secondary level, or a senior secondary level, an adolescent learner, or an adult learner. So what about the peculiarities, features, characteristics of learners? So that shall be answered by the question whom to teach. So these three basic questions: what to teach, why to teach, and whom to teach, are the tripod of teaching actually. And as I mentioned earlier, now there is a paradigm shift, especially by this occurrence of this pandemic, which is ongoing. Now we are with COVID-19. In 2020, we are having COVID-19. And it appears that in 2021, we will have COVID-20, because COVID-19 is rapidly mutating, means adapting, changing. So the new variant in 2021 may be COVID-20. So the context has changed very much. The context of teaching, the nature of teaching, that has been changed, and the pandemic is with us. So we have to shift the entire process of teaching. And this shift leads to the focus from teaching to learning. And this is an ongoing process, not only by the onset of this pandemic. Years before that, there is a strong movement in favor of learning, because the vision that nobody can teach anybody. So that's the vision. Only an individual can learn by own. Some help from others, that naturally they may or we may accept some help from others to learn. That's enough. We can teach anything to somebody. So that's a vision. And that movement towards that stress to learning than teaching, get accelerated by the pandemic, the current context. So it is highly significant to shift from teaching to learn. So what we teachers expect to teach now is teaching to learn, not teaching some knowledge. We have some knowledge and we were trying to teach them to our students. That was our convention. But now that has been changed. We have to teach them to learn. Learn from context, learn from situations, learn from materials, learn from activities, and so on. So they have to plan their lessons accordingly. So what we have to teach them now is how to plan their lessons. And instead of teaching, we can give them some instructions. Instructions are very, very important. In any kind or any level of teaching or any kind of learning as well, these instructions are highly significant. What we are supposed to do, what we are expected to do. So that's very important. So that instructions, the importance of instructions, when we are appearing for some exams, there will be some instructions at the beginning. Instructions for, or when we are applying for something, there will be a list of instructions. Read carefully the instructions before filling up the application or attempting the examination. These can be some common norm. So such instructions are highly significant in the case of learning also. So how to learn this thing, how to approach this thing, how to approach this particular activity or procedure or content, whatever it is. Then we have to teach them to make priorities. What are the priorities? What all things we have to do? Because there shall be a stepwise or sequential, a logical process or procedure for learning. So a learner have to learn properly, know properly, which should do initially. So that prioritization is also very significant along with these instructions. Then there shall be various strategies. Strategies for learning. Learning easily. So that also we have to teach. Naturally, we are not teaching all these things. We are just concentrating or focusing on covering up our topics and portions. But instead of that, we have to teach them, enable them. The term teach is not appropriate, but for the sake of convenience, for understanding purpose, I am using this term teaching. Enable them to plan their lessons. How to plan their lessons? How to deal with the instructions? To make priorities and to adopt and try out appropriate strategies and to learn from that. If they use one strategy and experience that it is not so appropriate, then enable them to learn from their experience, their feedback. So that shift to teaching to learn. Then learning to teach, that's for us. That's for teachers. We have to learn for teaching in this particular situation and in the forthcoming context. In order to cope up with the changes, the shift, the paradigm shift to from teaching to learning, we shall be well aware of the tools and devices of the day. What different tools, what different techniques that we can adopt and adapt. Both are important. We require adaptation with the situations. Many of our traditional tools and techniques are not practical in the present context. So we have to find out something new. So in order to cope up with the changes, we need to adapt with the situation. So we have to adopt some tools, or we have to modify the existing tools and existing practices, procedure, etc. And we have to uh, learn different with regarding different devices, which are the easiest devices and methodology. And technology is the supreme material, the raw material. Raw material of the day is technology. Consider only the technology as a raw material. Never allow the technology to rule us. So use those technologies which are easily and cheaply available to all learners. So we have to identify those technology. Which are the easiest technology, which are the cheapest technology, techniques in order to communicate with learners, to give them feedback, to get feedback from them, to share information, share materials, conducting assessment for everything. So technology as a raw material only. And we are teaching in an open world. That's a very threatful situation. Since last year, our teaching is a secret activity within the boundaries of our classrooms. But today it is not like that. Everything is kept open. The pandemic broken down the walls of the classrooms and make the learning process and teaching activity as open. Anybody can see and hear what we share with our students. So that secrecy in teaching has gone. So we shall be well aware of every single word that we share through different open online platforms. So that also we have to learn. Then teacher as a co-learner. That also is important. As teachers, we have to learn so many new things. We should have new perceptions. from the feedbacks and experiences, comments of learners. So learning to teach in the present context is highly challenging. So on the basis of all these things, still we can say education include to some extent an act of teaching. So thanks for watching the presentation. Thank you all.